could appear without warning. Captain Elias Trent had seen many worlds, but none as unpredictable as this. He adjusted the straps of his survival pack and squinted against the wind, scanning the horizon for signs of his team. "Dr. Voss," he called, his voice almost lost in the rising gusts. Arya Voss, the young scientist who had joined the expedition only a few months ago, was stubborn, brilliant, and reckless in equal measure. She had a habit of ignoring protocols when curiosity struck, and Elias was always there to reel her back. Today was no different. Arya crouched near a rocky ridge, her scanner humming as it collected mineral samples. She barely glanced up when Elias shouted her name again. "Arya, you need to stay close, a storm is coming," he warned, his tone sharp. She waved a hand dismissively. "I'm fine, Captain. The readings here are important. If I move too slowly, we'll miss a crucial mineral deposit." Elias's jaw tightened. He hated that tone. Confident, almost defiant. "Your safety comes first. Without you, there's no point in collecting anything." Arya rolled her eyes but returned to her work. She didn't notice the storm forming behind her. Sand and debris began to whip around the ridge, the wind gaining speed. Elias's heart raced. He had trained for unpredictable weather, but Arivos 9 had a way of testing even the best-prepared explorers. "Arya, move!" he shouted again, stepping forward. But she didn't hear him over the roaring wind. Before he could reach her, a sudden gust tore through the ridge. Arya stumbled, sliding dangerously close to the edge of a deep crevice. Elias's instincts kicked in. He dashed across the sand, barely keeping his footing as the storm swirled around him. "Captain!" Arya screamed, panic finally breaking through. Her calm exterior. Elias lunged, grabbing her arm just as her foot slipped. He yanked her back with all his strength, feeling the strain in his muscles as the wind threatened to push them over. "Hold on!" he yelled, his voice almost drowned by the storm. They fell together onto a flat rock, sand and grit stinging their faces. Arya gasped, clinging to him, and for a moment neither of them spoke. The storm howled around them, a constant reminder of how fragile human life could be on Arivos 9. You could have warned me sooner." Arya snapped, suddenly pulling, her arm free. She turned and, without thinking, hit Elias in the chest. Elias staggered back but didn't retaliate. Instead, he placed a hand on his chest where she had struck him, feeling the sting but keeping his expression calm. "Arya," he said quietly, his voice steady despite the chaos. "I was trying to save you. That's why I came." Arya froze, her anger fading as the truth of his words hit her. The storm raged, but now it was clear that Elias had risked his life to reach her. She swallowed hard, guilt rising inside her. I didn't mean," she began, but the words caught in her throat. Elias reached out, steadying her. "It's all right. Just hold still. We need to get to shelter before the storm gets worse." Reluctantly, Arya allowed him to guide her across the ridge. Every step was a battle against the wind and flying debris, but Elias's calm confidence kept her moving. She realized something she hadn't before. Human determination and courage were stronger than any storm, stronger than fear. Finally, they reached a small natural cave, partially protected from the raging elements. Elias helped Arya inside, brushing sand from her hair and clothes. She sank to the ground exhausted, and for the first time, she looked at him without defiance. "Captain, thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. Elias gave a small nod, though his own chest heaved from the exertion. "You need to understand something, Arya. On this planet and in this universe, humans survive because we care for each other, because we don't leave anyone behind." Arya looked at him, her previous anger replaced with something new, respect, admiration, and perhaps something more. She realized that this man, who had always seemed strict and unyielding, had risked everything to save her without hesitation. They sat in silence for a moment, the storm outside a constant reminder of how fragile life could be. Arya's hand brushed against Elias's, almost unconsciously, and she felt a strange warmth. She had been so focused on her work, on proving herself, that she hadn't stopped to recognize the human spirit in front of her. "You're incredible," she said softly. "I hit you. And yet, you saved me." Elias allowed himself a small smile, though tired. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't fighting the storm. It's fighting your own fear. And right now, we're stronger than fear. Arya nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and awe. She had always believed that humans were clever and brave, but seeing it up close, someone willing to risk everything for another, was something entirely different. Outside, the storm raged, but inside that small cave there was a quiet moment of understanding. Two humans, battered by nature and circumstance, had found a connection that went beyond words. Elias looked at Arya, his eyes calm but serious. "Rest now. We'll need our strength to return to camp. Erebos 9 doesn't forgive mistakes." Arya nodded, finally letting herself relax. She leaned back against the rock, feeling the weight of the day's danger lift just a little. She had survived, yes, but more importantly, she had learned the strength of human courage and the value of someone who truly cared. For the first time since arriving on this harsh world, Arya didn't feel alone. And Elias, watching her with quiet determination, knew that this was just the beginning. The storms would come again, but humans like them, were made to survive. The storm outside the cave had slowed but had not disappeared. Sand and wind still pounded the rocky landscape of Erebos 9, rattling loose stones and creating eerie howls through the cliffs. Elias Trent peered out the cave's opening, calculating the safest route back to the main camp. He knew every step counted. Even a small mistake could be deadly. Arya Voss sat on a flat stone nearby, knees pulled close to her chest. Her clothes were torn and dusty, but her face was calmer now. She had stopped trembling, but the memory of nearly falling into the crevice still made her heart pound. She watched Elias moving carefully, and for the first time she saw him not as a strict captain, but as someone fiercely determined to protect life. "You're very stubborn," Elias said, breaking the silence. His voice was steady but carried a hint of humor. Arya gave a small, tired smile. "I've been called that before, but you didn't even flinch when I hit you." Elias chuckled softly. "It's easy to stay calm when you know the stakes, and besides, hitting me wasn't going to help." Arya looked down, feeling a mix of embarrassment and gratitude. I didn't mean to. I was scared and I thought..." "Thought what?" Elias asked gently, kneeling beside her. "That I could handle it alone," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "I didn't want to rely on anyone." Elias nodded. "I understand. But here's the truth, Arya. Humans survive not because they are alone, but because they work together. That is our strength. Courage is important, but courage with care for others, that's what keeps us alive." Arya absorbed his words, realizing how true they were. All her life she had believed that success meant doing everything herself. On Erebos 9, she was learning that human connection was just as important as knowledge or skill. The storm began to fade, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Elias motioned for Arya to follow him. "We need to get moving. The camp isn't far, but the terrain is tricky." They stepped out of the cave, the wind still cold, but less violent. The landscape was harsh and jagged, with sharp rocks and deep crevices. The red-orange sand shimmered under the weak sunlight, creating strange patterns on the ground. Arya followed Elias closely, noticing how he scanned every step before moving. "See that ridge?" Elias pointed ahead. "We need to go around it. There's a narrow passage safer than climbing straight through." Arya nodded, trusting his judgment. "Lead the way, Captain." As they moved, a distant rumble echoed through the cliffs. Arya froze. "Another storm?" "No," Elias said, his eyes narrowing. "Something else." From the shadows of the cliffs, strange shapes began to move, low, quick, and almost silent. Elias's instincts kicked in immediately. Stay close. Don't make sudden movements. Arya's heart raced. She had read about Erebos 9's wildlife, but seeing it in real life was terrifying. The creatures were tall and thin, with glowing eyes and sharp claws, moving like shadows on the sand. They circled, watching the humans with obvious curiosity. Elias whispered, "We can't outrun them in the open. Follow my lead." Using the rocks as cover, Elias guided Arya carefully, keeping their movements slow and deliberate. He picked up a small piece of metal from his pack and clanged it against a rock, creating a loud noise that distracted one of the creatures. The others hesitated, giving them a chance to move forward. Arya's hands shook as she followed him. How are you so calm?" she asked quietly. Elias glanced at her. Because panic doesn't help. Humans survive by thinking, adapting, and working together. You trust me. I trust you. And that keeps us alive. The creatures hesitated, at the edge of the rocks, then slinked back into the shadows. Elias exhaled slowly, feeling the tension leave his body. We're clear, for now. Arya looked at him, awe in her eyes. You saved me again. Not just from the storm, but from them too. Elias gave a small smile. It's not about me. It's about humans. Humans fight, survive, and protect each other. That's who we are. As they continued, Arya felt a new respect growing for Elias. She had always admired intelligence and skill, but now she saw courage and patience in actio. The next morning, Erebos 9 greeted the team with an eerie calm. The sky was a muted red, and the air still carried the faint sting of yesterday's storm. Captain Elias Trent woke early, checking the scanners and making sure every system was operational. Despite the relative calm, he knew that Erebos 9 was a planet that never truly rested. Danger could strike at any moment. Arya Voss, surprisingly alert despite the exhausting events of the previous day, joined him. She had spent the night thinking about Elias's words. Courage alone was not enough. Humans survived because they cared for one another, because they worked together. She felt a new sense of purpose as she walked beside him. Elias, she said quietly, what's our next move? The survey data we collected yesterday. Does it tell us anything? He glanced at her, impressed by her calm focus. Yes, there's a canyon nearby that could hold valuable resources, but the terrain is dangerous, steep cliffs, unstable rocks, and the possibility of wildlife. We'll need to move carefully. Arya nodded. I'm ready. We'll do it together. Elias gave a small smile. Good. That's the way humans survive. Together. They left the safety of the camp, walking across the jagged red sands. Every step required concentration. The ground shifted beneath their boots, and deep fissures opened like traps waiting to swallow them. Arya kept close to Elias, trusting his guidance completely now. Stay alert, Elias warned. There's more than just the terrain to worry about. Erebos 9 has creatures that can move silently and strike without warning. Arya's pulse quickened, but she didn't falter. I'll be careful. For a while, the journey was quiet, the only sounds the crunch of sand and the distant wind. Then suddenly, a low growl echoed from above. Both Elias and Arya froze. Shadows moved along the cliff walls, sleek, fast, and dangerous. They're back, Elias whispered, his hand hovering near a scanner that doubled as a defensive tool. We need to stay calm and move strategically. The creatures leaped from the cliffs, but Elias had already calculated their movements. He signaled Arya, and they both ducked behind a large boulder. One of the creatures landed mere inches from where Arya had been standing, its glowing eyes scanning the area. Elias whispered, Use the terrain. Don't make noise. We can outsmart them. Arya nodded. Following his lead, she moved silently, feeling her heart pound but trusting his instructions. They climbed over rocks, ducked behind ridges, and slowly moved closer to the canyon's edge. The creatures hesitated, frustrated by the humans' careful strategy. Elias glanced at Arya. See? Humans can outthink predators even when they're faster or stronger. It's our mind, not just our strength, that keeps us alive. Arya's admiration for him grew. She realized that courage, intelligence, and teamwork combined made humans remarkable. And right now she was learning it firsthand. Finally, they reached the canyon rim. The view took Arya's breath away. Below them, a winding river glimmered faintly, surrounded by strange, towering rock formations. The area was rich with minerals, exactly what the survey had predicted. "We did it," Arya whispered, awe in her voice. Elias nodded, keeping his eyes on the cliffs. "Yes, but stay alert. We need to collect the samples carefully. One wrong step, and this canyon could become a trap." They began their work, carefully extracting samples and recording data. For a while it seemed the day would pass without incident. Arya worked closely with Elias, learning how he analyzed the environment, predicted risks, and stayed calm under pressure. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed through the canyon. Elias froze. "Rock slide, move!" Arya didn't hesitate. She followed Elias as he sprinted toward a safer ledge, dodging falling stones. One large boulder rolled dangerously close, but Elias pushed her to the side, taking the brunt of the impact on his shoulder. Pain shot through him, but he gritted his teeth, keeping his focus on getting them both to safety. When the rock settled, they were both shaken, but unharmed. Arya looked at Elias, panic in her eyes. "You're hurt!" He waved her concern away, grimacing but still focused. "I'm fine. Humans endure pain. We adapt. We survive." Arya reached out, touching his arm gently. "You always put yourself in danger to protect me, and others. I don't know how to thank you." Elias looked at her, tired but calm. "No thanks needed. That's what humans do. We protect each other. That's who we are." For a moment they stood in silence, looking down at the canyon. The danger had passed, but the lesson remained clear. Humans were strongest when they relied on each other, when courage was guided by care. As the sun began to set, painting the canyon in shades of red and gold, Arya felt something she had never felt before. A deep respect for Elias, and more importantly, a deep respect for humanity itself. Humans were not just clever or brave. They were resilient, compassionate, and capable of remarkable endurance. Elias glanced at her, noting the change in her expression. She was no longer just the brilliant, headstrong scientist he had to protect. She was a partner, someone who understood the strength of trust and cooperation. "Ready to head back?" he asked, his voice gentle but firm. Arya nodded. "Yes. Together." They climbed back toward the ridge, moving carefully through the rocky terrain. The creatures had disappeared, likely retreating into the canyon's shadows, but both remained vigilant. Erebos 9 was unpredictable, and survival required constant attention. When they finally returned to camp, the other team members greeted them with relief and surprise. Elias and Arya had not only collected valuable data, but had done so while navigating extreme danger. The camp commander shook his head in admiration. "I don't know how you two managed it. Erebos 9 doesn't forgive mistakes." Arya smiled faintly. "We humans, we adapt, we survive, and sometimes we even thrive." Elias looked at her, quietly proud. She had grown not just as a scientist, but as a human being who understood courage, teamwork, and the power of trust. That night, as the camp settled into an uneasy calm, Arya sat beside Elias outside the dome. The alien sky stretched above them, filled with strange constellations and a soft red glow. "You were amazing today," she said softly. I feel like I understand humans in a new way now. Strength isn't just physical. It's about mind, heart, and trust." Elias smiled, looking at the horizon. "Exactly. And that's what will keep us alive here. Humans face danger not because we are invincible, but because we never give up, never leave anyone behind, and always care." Arya leaned slightly closer, a gesture of gratitude and respect. She had learned the hard way that human courage was more than just skill. It was heart. And today, she had seen it in action. And as they gazed at the alien stars together, both knew that whatever challenges Erebos 9 threw at them next, they would face them with the strength of humans, brave, united, and unafraid. The next day, Erebos 9 seemed almost calm, but Elias knew better. The quiet before a storm was often the most dangerous. Today's mission was critical. The canyon they had explored held minerals that could support the entire colony. But reaching the deeper deposits meant crossing a narrow gorge, high above a jagged valley. One wrong step could be fatal. Arya Voss prepared her gear carefully, her hand steady but her mind alert. She had learned much in the past days, not just about surviving on Erebos 9, but about Elias himself. He wasn't just a captain giving orders, he was a human who led with courage, intelligence, and care. She trusted him now in a way she hadn't trusted anyone before. "Elias," she said, adjusting her pack. "I'm ready. Let's do this together." Elias gave a small nod, satisfied. "Together," he agreed. "Remember, humans survive by thinking, planning, and helping each other. Watch my moves and follow closely." They began the climb, the gorge narrow and unstable. Each footstep was deliberate, testing the rocks before committing weight. The wind howled through the valley below, carrying loose stones that rattled like gunfire. Arya stayed close, her focus sharp. She noticed how Elias never rushed, how he always analyzed every risk before moving. Halfway across the gorge, a sudden rumble echoed beneath them. Arya froze. What was that? Elias's eyes narrowed. "A landslide. The rocks above us are unstable. Move carefully and stay close to me." The ground shook as stones fell around them. Elias reached for Arya, guiding her to a slightly wider ledge. A large rock tumbled past, striking the edge of the gorge with a deafening crash. Arya's heart pounded, but she clung to Elias's instructions. "You can do this," he whispered. "Humans survive because we adapt. Keep your mind calm." Arya nodded, taking careful steps as Elias led the way. She realized something important. Courage alone wasn't enough. Humans survived because they combined courage with strategy, foresight, and trust in each other. Elias embodied all of this. They reached a narrow rock bridge spanning the deepest part of the gorge. The bridge was unstable, with gaps and loose stones. Arya hesitated. I don't know if I can make it," she admitted, fear creeping into her voice. Elias placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Yes, you can. Trust yourself, and trust me. Humans survive when we rely on each other. I've got you." Her fear began to melt, replaced by determination. She followed him carefully, one step at a time. The bridge creaked under their weight, but Elias's calm presence gave her confidence. When they reached the other side, she exhaled in relief, a smile breaking across her dusty face. "See?" Elias said with a faint grin. "Nothing we face is stronger than humans when we work together." Arya laughed softly, brushing sand from her clothes. "I can't believe The morning on Erebos 9 began with a quiet tension. The storm from days before had passed, leaving behind a landscape both beautiful and dangerous. Captain Elias Trent checked the scanners carefully. Today they had to explore a deeper sector of the canyon, a place few humans had dared to go. The terrain was unstable, and reports hinted at larger, more aggressive wildlife in the area. Arya Voss adjusted her pack, her hands steady despite the anticipation. She had learned much since arriving on Erebos 9. Courage and intelligence were important, yes, but trust, teamwork, and careful planning were what truly kept humans alive. Today she would put all of it to the test. "Ready, Arya?" Elias asked, his voice calm but firm. "I'm ready," she replied, looking at him with quiet determination. "We'll face it together." "Together," Elias echoed, a small smile crossing his face. They began their trek, moving carefully through the rocky terrain. Every step required attention: loose stones, narrow ledges, and hidden fissures made the canyon treacherous. Arya followed closely, trusting Elias's guidance completely. She had learned to read the signs of the land as he did, spotting cracks and weaknesses in the ground that could spell disaster. After several hours, they reached a part of the canyon that was unlike anything they had seen before. The walls rose, higher, and shadows stretched across the ground, hiding unknown threats. Elias motioned for Arya to stay close. These creatures are smart. They'll watch and wait. We need to outthink them. As they moved forward, the sound of shifting rocks echoed around them. From the shadows, massive alien creatures emerged, larger and faster than any they had faced before. Their glowing eyes reflected the red sky, and their movements were precise, almost as if they were coordinating. Arya froze for a moment, but Elias's calm presence reassured her. "We can handle this," he whispered. "Humans survive because we adapt, focus, plan, and act." Arya nodded, remembering everything she had learned. She and Elias began moving strategically, using rocks, ledges, and shadows to stay hidden. Elias threw small pieces of debris to distract the creatures, while Arya helped by setting traps with rocks and tools they had carried. Together, they forced the creatures to hesitate, showing intelligence and teamwork that the aliens could not anticipate. "Humans can outthink anyone," Elias said softly. "Remember that. It's not about fighting with strength. It's about fighting with your mind." Arya's heart pounded, but she moved with confidence now, following Elias' lead. They reached a narrow ledge above a deep ravine. Below, the alien creatures prowled, unable to reach them. Arya glanced down, feeling fear mixed with excitement. She had faced danger before, but this was different. She was actively participating in survival, not just relying on Elias. "Careful," Elias warned. "One wrong step and we could fall." Arya nodded, moving slowly and deliberately. Step by step they crossed the ledge, the wind threatening to unbalance them. Elias's presence beside her was steadying, but she felt her own courage growing with every step. Humans were not just survivors, they were problem solvers, thinkers, and fighters when needed. Finally, they reached a safer area. Arya let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "We did it," she whispered, looking at Elias with gratitude and respect. "We survived." "Together," Elias smiled, though his eyes remained vigilant. "Yes, humans survive by facing danger, adapting, and protecting each other. That's what makes us strong." As they moved deeper into the canyon, they discovered something remarkable: a hidden pool of water surrounded by strange vegetation. The minerals around it were rich, perfect for the colony's needs. Arya carefully collected samples while Elias stood guard, scanning for any new threats. This is incredible," Arya said, awe in her voice. "I never imagined a Revos 9 could be so dangerous and yet so beautiful." Elias nodded. "That's the universe. It challenges humans, but it also rewards courage and intelligence. That's why we survive and why humans will thrive anywhere." Their moment of calm was brief. From the shadows, a new threat emerged, larger, stronger, and faster than any creature they had faced before. Elias's hand went to his scanner, and he signaled Arya to stay low. Together, they used every strategy they had learned: distractions, terrain advantages, and calculated movements. Arya felt a surge of confidence. She had learned to think like Elias, anticipate the creature's movements, and act decisively. Step by step, they guided the creatures away, leading them into a trap they had prepared earlier. The creatures hesitated, confused, and finally retreated into the shadows. Arya looked at Elias, her chest still pounding. "We did it. We really did it." Elias nodded, tired but proud. "It wasn't just me. Humans survive because we work together. We trust, adapt, and protect each other. That's why we win, even against impossible odds." Arya smiled, feeling a deep sense of pride and understanding. She had learned not just to survive, but to thrive alongside another human. Courage, intelligence, and trust were powerful tools, and today they had proven their strength. As the sun began to set, painting the canyon in red and gold, they began their journey back to camp. Arya moved with confidence now, aware of every step and every risk. Elias walked beside her, a silent partner and guide. When they reached the camp, the team members rushed to greet them, amazed at their success. Arya held the collected samples, proudly. We faced the canyon, and we survived. Humans can do anything when we work together. Elias looked at her, quietly proud. She had grown from a brilliant but stubborn scientist into someone who understood human courage, resilience, and the power of trust. That night under the alien sky, Arya and Elias stood outside the dome gazing at the stars. The red glow of Erebos 9's sky cast long shadows across the camp. Humans, Arya said softly. We're stronger than I ever imagined. Not just because we're brave, but because we care, we think, and we survive together. Elias nodded. Exactly. And that is why humans will always thrive. Together we can face anything. Arya leaned slightly closer to him, a silent gesture of gratitude and respect. She had learned more than survival skills. She had learned what it truly meant to be human. And under the alien constellations, they both understood one truth. No challenge was too great, no danger too strong, as long as humans faced it together, brave, united, and unafraid. The morning dawned with a calm that was almost too perfect. The sky above Erebos 9 was a deep orange, the wind soft, the red sands glowing in the light. Captain Elias Trent stood outside the camp, checking the scanners. Today, they faced the ultimate challenge. The Heart Canyon, a place known for sudden landslides, aggressive wildlife, and treacherous cliffs. It was dangerous even for the most experienced humans. Arya Voss adjusted her pack, her hands steady but her mind alert. She had grown immensely since the first storm. She understood now that survival on Erebos 9 wasn't about strength alone. It was about courage, intelligence, trust, and heart. Elias, she said softly, I'm ready. No matter what happens, we'll face it together. Elias nodded, a quiet pride in his eyes. Together, he agreed. Remember, humans survive because we think, plan, and care for each other. And today, that will be tested like never before. They began their trek toward the Heart Canyon. The terrain was jagged and unstable, every step demanding careful attention. Loose rocks threatened to give way, and deep fissures opened unexpectedly beneath their boots. Arya stayed close to Elias, her trust in him absolute, yet she moved with growing confidence. As they neared the canyon's edge, a low rumble vibrated through the ground. Elias's eyes narrowed. Brace yourself. The canyon tests humans not just physically, but mentally. Stay alert. From the cliffs above, massive, alien creatures appeared, larger and smarter than any they had encountered. They moved in coordinated patterns, watching every step of the humans. Arya's heart raced, but Elias's calm presence grounded her. Use your mind, he whispered. Humans survive because we outthink danger, not just fight it. Arya nodded. She remembered every lesson: patience, strategy, observation, teamwork. Together they used the rocks and shadows to their advantage. Elias threw small debris to distract one creature, while Arya set a clever trap using the canyon's narrow passages. The creatures hesitated, clearly frustrated by the humans' tactics. Step by step, they advanced, moving as one unit. Arya realized how much she had changed. She was no longer the stubborn, reckless scientist who ignored safety protocols. She was a human fully aware of her environment, her strengths, and her responsibility to those around her. Suddenly, a landslide erupted above them, sending a cascade of rocks tumbling down. Elias grabbed Arya, shielding her from the impact. A boulder struck nearby, shaking the ground, but both remained unharmed. The creatures hesitated, uncertain amidst the chaos. You're safe, Elias said quietly, his hand resting on her shoulder. Humans survive because we protect each other. Courage alone isn't enough. Arya looked at him, gratitude and admiration shining in her eyes. I, I understand now. It's not just about surviving. It's about caring, planning, and trusting. And you taught me all of that. Elias gave a small, tired smile. We teach each other by example. That's what makes humans strong. They pressed on, navigating the dangerous cliffs and narrow ledges. The Heart Canyon was more challenging than anything they had faced, but together they moved with precision, using strategy, trust, and human ingenuity to overcome every obstacle. At the canyon's D,